Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning, Philly-Lo. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for us. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've all seen in baseball here in the first 2+ months of the season, where in the heck this Colorado Rockies win streak has come from, what he's all taking a look at in terms of the Thursday card, and some of the teams that he's finding a little bit of value on. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions. Everything, it is powered by Edge Boost. Edge Boost is making sure that bettors are able to access their funds 24/7, 365 when it comes to leap years, 366 days out of the year. As Edge Boost, they make sure that everything is all on the up and up. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, type in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Wednesday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
I certainly can't say that I saw this coming. After starting 3-28 on the road, the Colorado Rockies have won 3 straight road games and got a sweep over the Miami Marlins. 3-2 the final in this one. As for Colorado, you had a great start out of Kyle Freeland, 2 unearned runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Jake Bird from there, a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Victor Vodnik, Tyler Kinley, they both lend a scoreless inning. And for Miami, Cal Quantrill gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. And then Jansen Junk in long relief. Well, he was not junk. He gave up 1 run over the course of 4 innings, but just absolutely nothing doing for the Miami Marlins at the plate. So that was one where it was able to be had by the Colorado Rockies. So congratulations to them. What was had here wasn't over. As for the Boston Red Sox, they pounded the tar out of the LA Angels. This by a count of 11-9. And for Boston, they bust out of what was a little bit of an offensive funk in a big way with Ceddanne Rafaela going deep in the 9th inning off of Brock and Roll Burke. His 6th home run in the campaign. That was a walk-off fashion. As for the Red Sox, Lucas Giolito was not good in this one. He gives up 7 runs and he got 5 outs, and he gave up a home run to Taylor Ward, 17th home run of the campaign. Bullpen from there, very good. Brendan Bernardino allows a run in an inning. Greg Weiser, a run in a third of an inning, but Cooper Criswell, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless, and then Luis Guerrero, 2 1/3 innings, scoreless. Jacob Olson, Garrett Woodlock, they both give you a scoreless inning, and then Jose Soriano, he gives up 7 runs in 3 2/3 innings. Hunter Strickland, 1 1/3 innings, scoreless, and then you had Brock and Roll Burke give up 2 runs over the course of his inning of work, and he gave up that home run into Rafaela. And then Sam Aldagiri, he came in and he gave up 2 unearned runs in 2 1/3 innings in a long roll. The Washington Nationals find a way to persevere and get the job done over the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs being the best over team in all of baseball. 2-0 the final for the Cubs. Now 34 overs, 22 unders, and 5 pushes. And for Washington, they were able to do a nice job of just holding down this rock-solid lineup with Mackenzie Gore leading the way. 7 scoreless innings. Brad Lord, Kyle Finnegan, they both give you a scoreless inning. And Ahmed Rosario, 3rd home run in the campaign off of Matthew Boyd, was the difference, as Boyd gives up 2 runs in 7 1/3 innings. Genesis Cabrera, pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless, but can't win if you can't score. And the Astros, they did not score either, as the Pittsburgh Pirates do get a 3-0 win. And for the Pirates, they've been a pretty good under team as well. They're up to 24 overs, 35 unders, and 3 pushes thus far this season. And for Houston, it was just simply simply a case of not a lot doing at the plate, as you did have Steven Okirk give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, Brian King, Bennett Sosa, they both give you a scoreless inning, Ryan Gusto, he gives up 3 runs in 4 1/3 innings, so not necessarily great there, but he had some help from his friends. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, how about this man putting it together? Mike Burrows, 5 1/3 innings scoreless, Chase Shogert, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then you had David Benar, not Poop the Benar, scoreless inning, and Braxton Ashcraft was able to give you 2 scoreless innings as well. You were able to get a lot of scoring out of the Milwaukee Brewers as well. 9-1, they take down the Cincinnati Reds, so they were on to a win as you had a trio of bombs in this one. Jackson Chourio, his 10th home run of the season. Isaac Collins, home run number 2 of the season. And how about home run number 1 of the campaign for Des Cameron? As for the Cincinnati Reds, you did have Andrew Abbott really get lit up in this one. 5 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, including 2 of those homers. Lyon Richardson, a scoreless inning from there, and Wade Miley, the former Brewer, he comes in, he gives up 4 runs in 2 innings, including 1 of those home runs. And for the Reds, just not a lot doing at the plate. As for Quentin Pricer, he was the bulk guy in this one. He gives up 1 run in 5 innings, and he pretty much piggybacked off of DL Turn It Up Hall. Hall had himself a nice showing, 3 scoreless innings, and then Nick Mears, he was able to give you a scoreless inning to be able to get the job done out there. The New York Mets were able to take it to the LA Dodgers in the nightcap. This by kind of 6-1 as they were powered by Pete Alonso. He was able to go deep twice. Home runs number 13 and 14 of the campaign. First one comes off of Tony Gonsolin, who gave up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in the first inning, but finished 5 innings with those 3 runs earned. And then it was the young gun and Ryan Lotus who came in for a pair of innings. He gave up 3 runs, including that second home run to Pete Alonso, all of which were earned. Anthony Banda, Lou Trevino both led to scoreless inning, and Andy Paz is able to go deep off of Ryan Stanek, his 12th home run of the campaign, but it was too little too late. They came in the 9th inning. Griffin Canning, tremendous in this one, 6 scoreless innings, and you had Ryan Stanek give up that solo home run in his inning work, as Jose Castillo also was able to come in for a pair of scoreless innings. A rare under out there in Sacramento. Sacramento has been the best over ballpark in all of baseball, with nearly 2/3 of their games going over, but 6-1, the Twins get the job done against the A's as Zebby Matthews. Nice start here. 1 run allowed over the course of 5 innings. Louis Varlin, Griffin Jacks, Brock Stewart, and Yohan Duran all led a scoreless inning, and for the Twins, pair of bombs. Ryan Jeffers, 4th home run of the campaign. Harrison Bader, his 6th. For Bader, he's able to go deep off of the bulk guy, Jeffrey Springs, who fills 6 2/3 innings, gives up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, and Justin Sterner served as the opener, gave up a solo home run in his inning of work, and then Hogan Harris, not so much Hogan's Heroes, gives up 1 run in 1 1/3 innings. Baltimore Orioles starting around into a little bit more form. Still 24-36 for the season, but 3-2, they take it to the Seattle Mariners. As for the Mariners, Emerson Hancock was fine in this game. He gives up a solo home run in 5 2/3 innings. Anthony Rushman, his 6th home run in the campaign. From there, you had Gabe Spire give up a run in an inning of work. Carlos Vargas gives up a run in a third of an inning before Matt Brash, Casey Lugumina. They both give you a scoreless inning. And for Baltimore, Cade Bovich, relatively solid start. 5 1/3 innings, allows 2 runs, and from there, a shaky bullpen was very good. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, Felix Bautista, all lend a scoreless inning, and Yunier Cano, don't you know, he was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. For the Giants, massive rally here against the San Diego Padres. They were down by a count of 5-0, and somehow, some way, they find a way to be able to get the job done. This by a count of 6-5. As for the Pods, you had Nick Pivetta give up 5 runs in 6 innings. He gave them all up late, including a home run. Going deep for San Francisco, you had Matt Chapman get his 11th home run of the campaign, and Jason Adam, typically reliable, gives up a run in his inning of work, and Wandy Peralta, scoreless inning. And for Gavin Sheets, he was able to have a triple in this one, as it was not the night of Kyle Harrison. 5 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings, but this bullpen that is number 1 in the big leagues in terms of ERA for the Giants, they come through. Sean Hegeley, 2 2/3 innings scoreless. You had Tyler Rogers give you a scoreless inning, and then Ryan Walker along with Randy Rodriguez. They were both able to combine for a scoreless inning. Tigers and White Sox had a pretty long rain delay, but when they got it going, the Tigers found a way to be able to get the job done. 5-4 the finals. Colt Keith was able to have the winning it in the 8th inning, and for the Detroit Tigers, you had Spencer Gibson Long not be able to lend a lot of length. Again, he was making his first start since the 2023 campaign. 3 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings, but bullpen at his back. Tommy Canley, Tyler Holton, they were able to combine for 2 2/3 innings scoreless. Wolves, 2 scoreless innings by himself, and then John Brebbia gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Meanwhile, for the White Sox, you had in this one Jared Juicer be the opener, give up 4 runs in his inning work. Mike Vasil was actually very good. 3 2/3 innings scoreless. From there, Steven Wilson, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Jordan Leisure was able to lend a scoreless inning, but Brandon Eisert gives up a run in an inning, and Caleb Freeman, scoreless inning. So opener not necessarily so great there, and what was pretty tremendous was the Arizona Diamondbacks and their pitching. 2-1, they're able to take it to the Atlanta Braves. As for the Snakes, you had in this one Merrill Kelly go pretty much, I think, through 6 innings without a hit. He gives up 1 hit in 7 total innings as Ryan Thompson and out of the bullpen, and then Justin Martinez gets the final 5 outs, does allow a run along the way, but it was enough to get the job done as Chris Sale, tough luck loser, 10 punch-outs, allows 1 run over the course of 6 innings. Dylan Lee was able to give you 1 in the 3rd inning scoreless. Aaron Bummer, Tesbel Hernandez, both London out of the bullpen scoreless, and Rossiel Iglesias, he gives up a run in an inning, so the Diamondbacks find a way to persevere there, and the Cleveland Guardians were able to power their way to a 4-0 win over the New York Yankees. As for Cleveland, you had a pair of home runs as Kyle Manzardo goes deep for his 11th home run season, at Angel Martinez his 4th. As for Clark Schmidt, he gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 2/3 innings. Fernando Cruz gives up a home run in his inning of work. Brian Hendrick, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Tim Mill, a scoreless inning of his own. But for Cleveland, they just held down the Yankees as Luis Ortiz, 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Tim Aaron, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Hunter Gaddis, Emmanuel Clase. They're both able to give you a scoreless inning as well, and you're able to have the Tampa Bay Rays find a way to persevere, get the job done against the Walker Texas Rangers. This by a count of 5-4. As for Kumar Rocker, 5 runs allowed in 3 1/3 innings. He was very much rockered as he gives up a home run to Brandon Lau, his 12th home run of the campaign. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this was a pretty rock-solid performance from the bullpen. Manuel Rodriguez, Mason Montgomery, Edwin Uceta, Pete Fairbanks all end a scoreless inning as Shane Baz, the Baz, gives up 3 runs in 5 innings, including a home run to Jonah Heim, 7th home run of the campaign. And for the Rangers bullpen, pretty solid. Hobie Milner, Jacob Webb, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless apiece. And then you had Jordan Armstrong and Cole Winn be able to lend a scoreless inning of their own. And then you saw the Toronto Blue Jays be able to pick up a 2-1 win over the Philadelphia Phillies. For the Phillies, their young gun starter was able to have a very nice start here as Mick Abel, he was very able to hold down the Toronto Blue Jays as he lost 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. From there, Ryan Kirkering, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Matt Strom, Tanner Banks, they both give you a scoreless inning, but Jordan Romano, the former Toronto Blue Jay, gives up a run in the 9th inning that ends it. Don't call his name, Alejandro Kirk, RBI single, and Nick Castellanos, lone form of offense for the Phillies. 6th home run season, that comes off of Jose Barrios. Barrios gives up that sole home run in his 6 innings of work. You had from there Brandon Little, give you 5 outside the bullpen scoreless. Jeff Hoffman gets a final out for the win, and Chad Green was able to supply the team with a scoreless inning as well. If you're taking a look at the overall trends that we're seeing in baseball right now, we have had quite a bit of an underwhelming season thus far, with quite a few results still pending from the Wednesday card. The under rate is sitting at about 53.4%, 466 unders and 407 overs. Meanwhile, if you look at the last 7 days in baseball, it has been a case where we have seen the favorites have a rough go of at 40 and 39 on the money line, 50.6%. Meanwhile, the under rate at about 52%, 41 unders, 38 overs. Meanwhile, season to date, favorites are hitting at about 57.9%, 522 and 380 on the money line. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming up next, let's talk with our good friend Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show science podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Next, right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Take a look at this amazing game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at RobDFB. Also does a great job on the college basketball side of things as well. And Rob, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, always a pleasure to hop on here, Greg. And you kind of mentioned this before I hopped on, but we have a lot of things of note, and I'm excited to talk about them with you in the baseball world here.
Oh, it is going to be absolutely amazing. And when it comes to what we've got in baseball, the biggest story is the Rockies won 3 straight games. Their first road sweep in over a year. And just what do you make out of this? Because, I mean, with the Colorado Rockies, I know that a lot of people want to say, oh, the Marlins are bad and everything like that, but I don't care who you are. I feel like this came from absolutely nowhere whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to kind of see how the Rockies are going to be able to kind of use this as, I don't know, as fuel maybe to win 3 more in the month of June. But when you are looking at what kind of has helped them against the Marlins in particular, it's been just decent enough starts from their starters, and then a bullpen that I think is actually starting to round into form a little bit. They have a number of guys who, you know, aren't really big names, but have some really good stuff and honestly are producing right now. And even though the lineup maybe doesn't necessarily go crazy on any individual game, if they can just score enough runs, I'm thinking 3, 4, 5, they are going to be able to beat some of these more anemic teams in baseball, in my opinion.
Yep, with the Colorado Rockies, it's going to be so intriguing because I think that on the 4th of July, they play against the White Sox. And man, you want to talk about something that's patriotic, too, complete utter pushovers going at it with one another. That's going to be a lot of fun, to say the least. But I mean, when it comes to what we've got in baseball right now, we do have ourselves, just in my opinion, a little bit of a hodgepodge of different things with so many unders coming through. Now, we did see early on in the day on Wednesday a few games be very overwhelming between the Brewers and the Reds and the Angels and the Red Sox, but what have you just made out of all these unders that we've been seeing here in the early part of the season? Because typically when you reach early June, this is where the run production is supposed to start, and we haven't seen much of it.
A lot of it is contributed to the fact that, honestly, just the weather throughout the United States over the first 2 months, it really took some time for things to start heating up, and now we're starting to see the 70s and 80s with pretty much regularity. To your point, there are a lot of good starting pitchers that maybe aren't elite. We're not talking about prime King Felix or prime Verlander, but there's enough guys who are kind of hovering around that 4 ERA mark where, there's not a lot of damage, coming in a lot of these games. And I do feel like if we're going to still see the traditional 8.5, 9.5 type over-unders, you're going to find a lot of value in those markets right now.
Yep, you certainly are, and I think that we've got a lot of intrigue with some of these teams that just have not been able to hit in general, because I think that there's a giant divide between the have and have-nots in baseball with their offense. When it comes to road games, obviously the Colorado Rockies, even though they won 3 straight games, it's not necessarily like they put up there a offensive expose or anything like that, but I'm talking about the Chicago White Sox, the Texas Rangers, the Pittsburgh Pirates. There are just a lot of bad offenses out there. The Royals, very much worth noting as well, that it just feels like they're not getting out of neutral, and I look at the names on paper and they're just out producing to what they've done in past years.
I think you nailed it, and there are certain teams where that's the exact opposite, right? You have the Oakland A's where they're going to try to win, a 9-8 type of game because their bullpen is so terrible, and you're going to have the Angels today against Boston, go out there and score freaking 15 runs in the first inning if possible. But, to your point, there are some really anemic teams in baseball right now. The big notable one that I think kind of shows that you can still win with that style is Kansas City, is the Texas Rangers, who are hovering around that 500 mark right now. And I don't really know what exactly feeds into that because they do have great players. Corey Seager obviously was on the IL for a little bit, but even before he was on the IL, they weren't really producing. And I don't know if you can really jumpstart that, but man, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they just kind of sit on their hands near the deadline or decide to add some bats.
No question about it. I do think that it's going to be so interesting with some of these teams that are looking to be able to rise up, are looking to be able to provide a little bit more. But I also just take a look at what we're going to be getting between one of those teams that I mentioned, the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're going to be up for 2. Now, it looks like it's going to be still Cole Reagans versus Matthew Liberatore, and then the original matchup that we were supposed to get, Noah Cameron versus Miles Mikolas. But I want to get your thoughts on this double dip. One where Cole Reagans is coming in for his first start in about 3 or so weeks. Liberatore has been amazing, and then I look at that first matchup between Noah Cameron and Miles Mikolas, and I just don't know how these guys are putting up the zeros that they are.
Yeah, Miles is probably one of the more crazy stories in baseball because he's actually pitching really darn well. And, it's easy to kind of poke fun and say like, oh, well, obviously there's going to be a cliff. He's going to fall off it eventually. But even the underlying numbers are supporting the fact that, Miles Mikolas isn't just getting lucky. He's just pitching to soft contact. He's pitching around the good hitters and kind of taking his chances with guys who are more manageable. And I really do think that in this type of game going up against Cameron, we're going to see a little bit of an under sort of a feel through the first 5 innings. And that's where I really want to target. Now, in that second game with Cole Reagans and Matthew Liberatore, I am going to be curious to see how Cole Reagans comes off the IL and performs because his last few starts before reaching the IL were really, really shaky. And I think that's a byproduct of almost that Zach Gallen-esque approach where he attacks the zone with a lot of power stuff. And you can get those strikeouts that way. But if people are barreling you up, they can also take you out the yard with a relatively easy swing. So I do think the Cardinals on the money line in that Cole Reagans game is where I would go. And in that first game, I really do like the under.
Yep, and with regards to Noah Cameron versus Miles Michael, is such an intriguing game in general between those two. And this is a game that's presently off the board, and I'm not quite sure why, but Dodgers versus Mets has been a lot of fun. And we're going to have Landon Knack against David Peterson. I personally feel like the Mets should only be a very, very slight underdog here. I want to get your thoughts on this one and what we've seen out of both of these teams, especially a Mets bunch where it just feels like they've been really able to round into form over the last few weeks.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see if Landon Knack goes in this game, because I don't know if they're going to be using sort of an opener approach with Landon moving forward. They already kind of have started to do that, and, he's a guy that when he is pitching in games, I tend to go with the over or the other side because he gives up a ton of hard contact, and I get it. He's young. He has a lot of room to improve even as this season goes on here. But I do feel like he attacks the zone almost to his detriment at this point, where he's going to be outclassed by good lineups. And the Mets, although they are pretty shaky in terms of, recording a lot of hits, they do have a lot of guys who are starting to round into form. And for that reason, I think taking the Mets on a first 5 run line or even a first 5 money line would be kind of the angle that I would see in that game.
No question about it. And I do think that with regards to that one, it's going to be very intriguing to see what we get out of David Peterson as well, who's been really doing a nice job of inducing soft contact. And then this one I think is fascinating as well, as the Padres are slight underdogs against the Giants. And for Dylan Cease, I feel like he's one of those guys that is doing for a lot of positive regression. Meanwhile, for Robbie Ray, it's been a wonder season for him. What do you make out of these two pitchers and this game in general, where I take a look at that total of 7.5, and I'm leaning towards an under personally.
Yeah, I really love the under in this spot, and I specifically like it through the first 5 innings because you look at the Padres, and although their offense is, I would say relatively anemic, I look at the Giants, and it's even more so anemic. I mean, this might be the worst offense in baseball, in truth, outside of the Rockies. And when you are looking at the Giants playing in Oracle, again, you're adding in a pitcher-friendly ballpark with 2 pitchers who could equally go out there and shove for not only 5 innings, but 7, 8, 9 innings. And I really do buy into the fact that this game, through the first 5, goes under, through the full game goes under, and heck, you might only see 1 or 2 runs go off the board throughout this entire thing if they actually go out there and eat innings.
Yeah, no question about it. And these two guys have been great, and those 2 bullpens have been amazing, as well as Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's just been a hodgepodge of a year for them. And for Brandon Pfaadt, he's taking the mound against the Braves, and Grant Holmes between -130 to -140 is that number on the Braves. How do you just decipher this one? And a guy in Brandon Pfaadt, who it just feels like he's really regressed this year.
Yeah, and I kind of saw this Brandon Pfaadt regression coming on the horizon, and even during his year where he went to the playoffs, he pitched really well. It felt like the build-up to that playoff run was a lot of hard contact underlying just really good strikeout stuff. And unfortunately for him this year, the strikeouts have really fallen off a cliff. Those underlying hard contact numbers have still been there. And the last time out against Washington, I saw a funny tweet, but somebody said he recorded the first ever only hitter because he didn't record a single out in every single Washington National reached through the first inning. And then actually, I think they doubled up in the first inning there too. And now it's going to be interesting to see, where his mental state kind of lies after getting bludgeoned. I mean, he didn't record a single out against the Washington Nationals, gave up 10, 11 earned runs. And when you are looking at, just the underlying stuff that led in that game, it wasn't really pretty either. So going up against the Braves, I really like a Braves money line. I like a Braves team total. I even like, taking some alternate run lines, kind of stacking it up on the Braves side. I think this is a really good Brave spot for a team that also is trotting out Grant Holmes, who is looking pretty darn fantastic as of late.
Yeah, Grant Holmes is a guy that I've always really liked, and I think that he's got quite a bit of upside here and moving forward. And when I just take a look league-wide at baseball, obviously, we've got a hot team in the Colorado Rockies that has won 3 straight games. They've been able to make you a lot of money, but is there a team or two that over the last few weeks you're just starting to be able to find a little bit more attachment to, a team that you've either been loving to bet or you've been finding a lot of profit just being willing to fade them?
I actually am looking at the Orioles, and I think that a lot of people kind of saw this one coming. This was like the obvious, wouldn't surprise anybody, positive regression candidate coming into mid-May. And, as of late, they won 7 of their last 10. They've won now 4 in a row. I think they have a good chance to make it 5 as we're talking here on Wednesday. And a large part of that comes down to the fact that although this rotation isn't the, I guess, most dynamic or most flashy, Charlie Morton is starting to round into form. Sugano is halfway decent. And there's a lot of guys that I think could give them serviceable outings. And as they get healthier, you're going to see this rotation and pitching staff really kind of round into form a little bit better, into a better spot. And this is still a lineup with a lot of dynamic left-handed hitters that if you're going up against a righty, they're going to have a decent chance to put up runs. And I don't know if this is a team that can work its way back into playoff contention. I wouldn't go that far. But in terms of the money line prices, you're still seeing plus 130, plus 140, plus 120 against the good teams in baseball. And right now, I think the Orioles are playing like one of the better teams in baseball.
Yeah, with the Orioles, it's been so intriguing, though. I don't know what we're going to be able to get out of Zach Eflin against the Seattle Mariners on Thursday, as it's going to be Brian Wu on the bump for the Seattle Mariners. And right now, the Orioles are finding themselves right around about plus 140, plus 150. Would you be willing to bet the Orioles on Thursday?
I would. And Brian Wu is a guy that I really like, but ultimately, he's a right-handed pitcher, and this is, again, a lineup that features a ton of lefties, and a good performance from Brian Wu could look something like, 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, and I feel like that would still give Zach Eflin enough of a window to go out there and pitch, 5 innings or 6 innings, give up 1 or 2 earned runs to keep the Orioles in it. At plus 150 odds, that's a good value. And if you even want to take them on the first 5 money line and it's say 1-1 or 2-2 after those 5 innings, well, you push on your bet and nothing lost anyway. So I would definitely be looking at the Orioles there tomorrow, even going up against a good starting pitcher.
Yep, I agree with you. And with regards to this card that we've got for Thursday, it's a pretty rock solid one. Typically, with regards to a getaway day, we don't have necessarily a ton of games. Today we do. So is there anything else that you're taking a look at betting?
There's a lot of great games, and we're getting day baseball on a Thursday, and it's a jam-packed card. I love to see it. And, honestly, we talked about a lot of the games that I was really intrigued by, but I'll even take you to another one here where we have the Cubs taking on the Nats. We'll see what happens in tonight's game. I'm personally riding the Nats money line, but again, Jake Irvin's a guy who kind of goes out there, doesn't do anything insane. He's a good strikeout guy, but he also gets tagged up a little bit. And the Cubs are a team, again, that features a lot of great left-handed hitters, and there are a lot of hot hitters in that Cubs lineup. And I do feel like the fact that he's going to attack the zone is going to be of the benefit of the Cubs lineup. So if you're looking at maybe a first 5 team total or a full game team total, I'd be all aboard with the Cubs.
Yep, with the Chicago Cubs, that offense has just been so rock solid, and we'll need to see if Colin Ray is going to be getting the start or not for the Cubs. I would think so, but even if it's not Colin Ray, I do think that they're going to be able to attack a guy in Jake Irvin that's been giving up lots and lots of contact this year, and a man that I always like to have lots and lots of contact with on this podcast because, man, this guy knows his stuff. That'd be you, Rob. You do such an incredible job taking a look at this great game of baseball. Let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a great time hopping on here, man. And for those who want to follow my bets on a nightly basis, you can do so on my Twitter/X page at RobDFB, and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man.
It is always great to be able to get Rob aboard. It's just such an amazing job. Taking a look at this great game of baseball, and every single time he joins me, lends incredible insight. So big thanks, Rob, for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such amazing insights. Did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Thursday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81. We're going to be going on the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. And how about if we do start things off with 901, 902 on the betting board? It is the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road against the Atlanta Braves. Grant Holmes is on the bump for the Bravos. Brandon Pfaadt goes for Arizona, and Arizona is an underdog of between plus 114 to a plus 120, minus 130 to minus 140. That number on Atlanta. 9 is the total. The over and the under both at minus 110. And for the Braves, I did set them at a minus 133, so I'm going to be willing to lay that minus 130 money line. For Grant Holmes, it has been a little bit wonky from this season, as throughout his career he's sort of went from being in the bullpen to being a starter to being back in the bullpen, and this year he's gotten a little bit more of that true starter's role, and he's really been progressing. 3 runs or fewer allowed in each of his last 4 starts, 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He is giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, so that's a bit of an issue, but 3.78 ERA, 4.66 fielding independent, so I've been loving what I've been seeing out of him. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Brandon Pfaadt who has been really battling it recently, as he had himself a less than savory month of May, as he has given up now 3+ runs at each out of his last 4 starts. And right now for Brandon Pfaadt, he has a 7-4 record. That does not indicate how well he's been pitching. He's got fielding dependent of a 5, 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, and I do think that for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle with the way that Pfaadt is pitching, because the bullpen just has not been great. They are a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, with AJ Puck being on the injured list. It's really caused them to be not so great in the bullpen, to say the least, as you do have Kendall Graveman coming back off of injury. That's big. And then Jalen Beeks, Shelby Miller, these are 2 long guys that have a sub 3.5 ERA. Justin Martinez is coming back. He's been able to give you about a 3.5 as well, but Ryan Thompson has been all over the place. Juan Murillo as well, and this is a Diamondbacks team that is really carried by their offense. This has been a top 6 team with regards to runs per game. You've got Eugenio Suarez along with Corbin Carroll combining for 34 home runs, and with Carroll a 336 on base. You've got Geraldo Perdomo, who's able to give you a 375 on base, and Pavin Smith, he's able to give you a 390 on base. And additionally, you've got Ketel Marte, who's come off the injury list, and he's been great, north of 400 on base, 10 home runs as far this season. And on the flip side, it is a bunch in the Atlanta Braves that has been able to get back Ronald Acuna Jr., and that's really been able to elevate their offense. As for the Atlanta Braves, they also do have very demonstrative home and road splits this season as well. For the Atlanta Braves, they just have not been great on the road, but you know what, getting Ronald Acuna Jr. back, 3 home runs in his first 10 games, a 400 on base, that should be able to help things out quite a bit. And then Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, all between 10 and 12 home runs this far this season. Ozzy Albies has really demonstrative splits between righties and lefties, so that's been something to be taking note of. But with regards to Austin Riley, he's hitting about a 275, Marcell Ozuna a 420 on base, and then Alex Verdugo, since he's come back into the lineup, he's been able to move the line, hitting about a 250 or so. And this Atlanta Braves team, I do think, has the leg up with regards to their bullpen, as you've got Desbel Hernandez along with Dylan Lee, who'll be able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Daniel De Los Santos has actually run it into relatively good form as well. You need to get more of Horacio Iglesias. He's been blowing too many saves, and he's got an ERA that's north of 5. And Rafael Montero, not necessarily eliciting a lot of confidence, but overall, I do think that the Braves should do a nice job getting to Pfaadt here and getting the job done. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 132 on that Braves money line, and semi-total 9.2, so at the 9, I'd like the over. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Slam Diego Padres are on the road against the San Francisco Giants, as Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another start, and Dylan Cease is on the bump for the Padres. Padres are between a plus 105 to a plus 110 underdog, and between minus 120 to minus 130 is that number on San Francisco. 7.5 is the total. The under is minus 125, and the over is plus 105. Set this to where a plus 112 or higher. I'm going to be able to take a shot on the Padres money line. I think that when it's all said and done, we should be able to get there, though. If you're looking at the run line right now, that initial run line price I'm seeing on the Giants is a plus 188. If I absolutely had to bet it right now, I actually would take a shot on a plus 188. That's actually a really good run line value with a San Francisco Giants team that does have a trio of different guys who will be able to give you at least 10 home runs as far this season, as you've been able to get that out of Thairo Estrada. Eloy Ramos is actually up to 11 home runs, and Matt Chapman is giving you about a 350 on base. You've got Ramos is giving you 350 on base as well, and then Jung-Ho Lee, he's been able with about a 270 for this unit. You do have a few guys towards the bottom lineup that are just hitting below the middle sign of 200. Lamont Wade Jr., Patrick Bailey, Luis Matos, these guys have been rough, but you've been able to have Mike Yastrzemski do an okay job of moving the line. We've seen regression out of him over the last 30 or so days, but still give you about a 333 on base. But what is really the specialty of the San Francisco Giants team, the bullpen, currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERAs. You've got so many guys that you're able to mix and match with. It's been a small sample size with Tristan Beck, but he's been a nice long guy throughout the past few years. Taylor Rogers, along with Randy Rodriguez, Eric Miller. Actually, Tyler Rogers, his brother Taylor, is now on the Reds, along Camilo Duvall. I'll give you a sub 2 ERA. Spencer Bivens has been pretty solid as a long guy as well. And Flip side, you've got a San Diego Padres team that has been a top 10 team with regards to bullpen area. Yuki Matsui, Adrian Morejon, these guys have been able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA. You've got Robert Suarez, who's been a really good closer for this team, and you've got a bunch in general that has a lot of guys that are able to just give you a solid inning, like a Jason Adam. And then for the Padres, you have a pair of guys that are doing a nice job of just slugging the ball. Fernando Tatis Jr. along Gavin Sheets, a combined 24 home runs with both of these guys hitting at least a 260. Jackson Merrill sitting above a 300. Manny Machado sitting at least a 315, though. For Machado, only 7 home runs. You expect a little bit more there, and then additionally, you need to get a little bit more on someone like an Elias Diaz, who's hitting just a 215. And when it comes to Dylan Cease, it just feels like he should be having better results right now than what he has, as his ERA is well north of a 4. If you look at the advanced numbers, much of this is because he is a very high strikeout guy. It's indicating a lot of positivity. 329 fielding independent, 466 ERA, only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings. He's getting 11 punch-outs per 9 as well, but it just hasn't necessarily materialized for him, as he's coming off of giving up at least 3 runs at each out of his last 3 starts. But I do think that this is going to be a start where things start to turn around for him a little bit now. I do think that this total is set too low. I did set my total at a 7.4 because along those lines as well, you do have a guy in Robbie Ray that still has his command issues. He's been much better this year in terms of being able to lock down 243 ERA. He's got a fielding independent more around about a 306 with 3.8 walks per 9 innings, still getting about 10 punch-outs per 9, but big thing is he's been able to cut down on the deep ball, only allowing 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. But that said, I do think that both of these pitchers going to be able to go out there, lend a good start. If I can get a plus 112 or higher on the Padres, I do like them on the money line. And with regards to total, I set mine at a 7.4, so here at the 7.5, I do like the over. 905, 906 on the betting board. It is the New York Mets, and they are going to be on the road against the LA Dodgers, as it is going to be Landon Knack, the Knack, who's going to be going for the Dodgers, and it is old David Peterson, great name, who's on the bump for the New York Mets. Right now, this game is completely off the board, so makes it a little bit tricky there, but I've got my handicap. I did set the Dodgers to where I'm willing to lay up to a minus 108 on the money line, plus 110 or higher. I'm going to be looking at the Mets, and then I set a total to where a 9 or less. I'm going to be in on the over 9.5 or higher. The unders, I set my total 9.4 for Knack. Does feel like he's going to be able to round into form a little bit more. This is a young gun pitcher that LA Dodgers have a little bit of faith in. For Knack, the swing and miss stuff is honestly pretty good. The biggest thing is he does need to be able to hone in with regards to a little bit more of the command, and he has been giving up this far this season right around about 3.3 walks per 9 innings, and lower contact, 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Big giant issue, 458 or a 491 fielding independent as a result, but has given up a combined 2 earned runs in his last 2 starts, so there were a few unearned runs that he gave up in that start against the Metropolitans. Meanwhile, for Peterson, he has been able to do a really good job of just being able to keep things out in front of him, give up soft contact in general, as he's been getting about 8.5 strikeouts at 3.3 walks per 9 innings, 0.6 home runs per 9, and he's got a 331 fielding independent, 269, very nice ERA, and he's given up 2 earned runs or fewer in each out of the last 5 starts. And for this New York Mets team, you've got a bullpen that is full of guys that are able to give you some great innings. That's been a top 5 team all season long. With regards to our bullpen ERA, Oscar Barzobin has been able to supply you with a sub 2 ERA. Now, Jose Buto has been a little bit up and down recently, but you saw Reed Garrett, who's been absolutely amazing. Edwin Diaz has been able to round into form as the closer after it was a little bit of a shaky start to the season for him. And with this Mets lineup, you've got Juan Soto all of a sudden starting to give you some power, as he's been able to supply the team with 3 home runs over the last week or so, 11 bombs, 360 on base. Pete Alonso along with Francisco Lindor combined 26 home runs, both of these guys hitting about a 285, and then you've been able to get some really good production as well out of someone like a Francisco Alvarez whenever he's been out there. He's been able to give you 330 on base, as he and Luis Torrens have been able to do a nice job as a 1-2 punch at the catcher spot. Torrens has been able to give you about a 350 on base, and for the Dodgers, they are averaging north of 6.5 runs per game at home. That is number 1 in all of baseball. Shohei Ohtani, big reason why. How about 23 home runs? He's been able to supply you with about a 385 on base, and then Andy Paez, Teoscar Hernandez, a combined 21 home runs for both of these guys, rating about a 280. Freddie Freeman, a 369 average, just absolutely insane. And Max Muncy starting to round into form as well after a very brutal start to the season. Last week or so, he's been able to 4+ home runs. He's back up to about a 350 on base, and Will Smith giving north of a 400 on base as well. Though with Mookie Betts, a little bit of an injury that he is going through, so that hurts the team a little bit, but might be good to go in this one. I did set this to where a minus 108 or better, looking at the Dodgers, plus 110 or higher, the Mets, and then 9 or less, like the over 9.5 or higher. The under 907, 908 on the betting board. It is the Chicago Cubs. They're on the road road, facing off against the Washington Nationals. We do know that it's going to be Jake Irvin who's going to be going for the Washington Nationals. Right now it is old to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the Cubbies, and that is the reason why this game is presently off the board. Now, when I was looking at CBS Sports a little bit before, along with ESPN, they were all projecting Colin Ray, to which we would say hip hip hooray for another start for him, and if you do indeed get Ray, I'd be willing to set the Cubs at a minus 142 on the money line. So minus 141 or better, looking at the Cubs, plus 143 or higher, looking at the Nationals, and then set a total of 9.2, 9 or less. I'd like the over 9.5 or higher. The under for Jake Irvin, he just has had a lot of issues giving up hard contact, because for Irvin, he's been able to do a nice job over the last few years, making sure that his command is on point, and he's never going to be any sort of like supreme swing and miss guy, so he does need to induce a little bit of soft contact, but hasn't necessarily done the world's greatest job of that this year. About 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 2.5 walks per 9, only about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, so there's been a little bit of an issue there, and his last start he gave up a nice 6 spot to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Meanwhile, you've got a guy in Colin Ray who's fallen on some tough times over the last few starts. Prior to, I would say, the last 2 starts, he was really off to a nice start to the season, then gave up a combined 12 runs to the Cincinnati Reds in 2 starts, so that was a little bit less than tremendous. Overall for the season, 3.96 ERA, 4.33 fielding dependent, with the 1.4 home runs per 9 innings allowed being the issue, 2.5 walks, 7.5 strikeouts, so he does a relatively solid job there. And for the Chicago Cubs, all of a sudden, this has been a bullpen that has been able to rise up and has been able to do quite a bit of a better job, as you've got Daniel Palencia along Drew Pomeranz coming out of nowhere, being able to give you a sub 250 ERA. Brad Keller has been able to do a nice job as well. Porter Hodge along with Ryan Presley have been big giant flops with regards to this bullpen, but all of a sudden the Cubs bullpen that was relatively rough to begin the season, they've been able to round into form. And for the Washington Nationals, man, it's just rough with this bullpen. 29th in the big leagues with a 5.93 bullpen ERA. Jackson Rutledge has started to regress quite a bit for this team, and you've been able to get some solid innings out of Andrew Chafin along with your closer in Kyle Finnegan, but pretty much everyone else like Jose Ferrer and company, these are just very untrustworthy guys. But for the Washington Nationals, this is a lineup that is starting to rise up. They were 7th in the big leagues in the month of May in terms of runs per game, and you do have a guy in James Wood who's giving you 16 home runs. He's been able to supply you with about a 380 on base. CJ Abrams has been able to supply 8 home runs along with Nathaniel Lowe. Josh Bell has not been really moving the line, as he and also Dylan Cruz are hitting right around about a 200, but that said, 9 home runs out of him. Alex Call, whenever he's in the lineup, does a nice job of moving the line. And for the Chicago Cubs, right now, number 1 in the National League in terms of runs per game. As a matter of fact, they are number 1 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, as Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, a combined 29 home runs this season. Dansby Swanson has been able to come in there. He's been able to give you 11 bombs as well. Kyle Tucker has done a nice job being able to find a way on base, so he's with a little bit of an injury. He was out of the fold yesterday, but you still have a lot of guys that are still finding a way on. Nico Horner's hitting at 300. Michael Busch has been able to give you north of a 340 on base as well. And for the Chicago Cubs team, I do think that they are going to be able to provide a nice little bit of an edge here against Jake Irvin. I set this total at a 9.2, so 9 or less, looking at the over 9.5 or higher. The under and for the Cubs, willing to lay up to a minus 141 on that money line, plus 143 or higher. Going to be looking at the Nats. 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers, and they're going to be on the road facing off against the Chicago White Sox, as Sean Burke is going to be on the bump for the Southsiders. And with the Chicago White Sox, they are a plus 180 to a plus 186 underdog, and between minus 202 to minus 220 is that number on Detroit. 8.5 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And right now, initial run line prices are the Detroit Tigers being in that neighborhood about a minus 130. And I did set the Tigers on the money line at a minus 184. So now there we're starting to get some plus 185 or so out there. I will be looking at the Chicago White Sox, as the White Sox have been such a better team when they've been at home rather than on the road. This is the White Sox team that they just can't win a game when they're on the road. So that has been very intriguing to take a look at going into the day on Wednesday. Actually 13-16 at home with a whopping 6 wins on the road this far this season. That's as many as the Colorado Rockies. And Miguel Vargas, 8 home runs. He's been able to give you about a 320 on base for this White Sox team. You've had Chase Meredith, who's been able to give you about a 375 on base. You've had the catcher spot actually be halfway decent for this team, including Edgar Quiro. He's been able to hit about a 250 or so, doing a nice job moving the line. Now you've got Andrew Benintendi back in the fold, give you about a 350 on base. Andrew Vaughn got sent back to the minor league level because he's just rough. And Luis Robert, $177 batting average with 5 home runs. This has just been awful from him, and this has been a Chicago White Sox team that, quite frankly, they have been pretty awful with their bullpen. This is going to be the biggest mismatch in this game, as right now for the Chicago White Sox, 24th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and to send Bryce Wilson back to the bullpen, though they're probably going to have him starting in like a week or so, because that's the way that they've been operating with Bryce Wilson. But He, along with Jared Schuster, the opener, Cam Bouger, you've got Miguel Castro, all these guys posting up north of 5 ERA. Mike Vasil has actually been a really good long guy. He's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but that's about all that you've got with this team. And then on the flip side, you've got a Detroit Tigers team that they've been able to do a nice job of mixing and matching with regards to this bullpen, as you've got so many guys who are right now supplying a sub-3 ERAs. You've been able to have that out of Chase Lee, Tommy Kahnle, Brant Herter, Will Vest, and additionally, you've been able to get good production on Brandon Hennefy, a little bit north of a 3 ERA as well. For Casey Mize, not necessarily going to be blowing you away with his swing and miss stuff, even when he was a really, really highly touted prospect, was never necessarily that high strikeout guy. He's never really been able to supply that, but with Casey Mize, he's posting up a ERA that's right around about a 282 again, about a 405 fielding dependent, 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he does need to cut down on the 1.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but is now backed up by a Detroit Tigers team that's in the top 5 in terms of runs per game in the American League, as you've got a trio of different guys who will be able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs. Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, all between 13 and 14 home runs. Green and Carpenter are both hitting about a 275. Additionally, you've got Zach McKinstry, who's been able to give you about a 350 on base. Javi Baez is hitting about a 270, along with Gleyber Torres, and I do think that for the Detroit Tigers, they're going to be able to supply some relatively solid offense here, but for Sean Burke, I do think that he does enough to be able to help you have a little bit of value here at about a plus 185 or so, because with Mr. Sean Burke, he's been able to do a nice job of just being able to find a way to hold down the fort, fill some innings, so that way the bullpen is just not coming out there. He's went 6+ innings in 3 out of his last 5 starts, and he's given up 2 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. He does have a 5.27 fielding dependent. That is much higher than his ERA. His ERA is right now clocking in more in the neighborhood of a 4.20, as he's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. 4.5 walks per 9 is a bit of an issue, but I do think that he's going to be able to do just a good enough job to give the White Sox a chance, especially with, in my opinion, Casey Mize being a little bit hit or miss. So I did set my total at 8.2. White Sox have certainly had a tough time being able to get their offense going. So seeing the same half, I do like the under, and I do like the White Sox up to a plus 185 or higher on the money line. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Athletics are going to be playing us the Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober is on the bump for the Twins. It's old undecided who's on the bump for the Athletics. Shock, shock, surprise, surprise. We've been seeing this a ton, but that said, for the Athletics, right now I'm projecting Gunnar Hoglund going for them. There is a lot of mixed messages here, though, with the A's. They have been very inconsistent with who's been throwing for them over the last few days, and if you do indeed get Gunnar Hoglund, who's going to be going in this one, I set the Twins at a minus 169 on the money line, so I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 168 there. We'll most likely be looking at a run line, which I was willing to lay up to a minus 110 there, plus 170 or higher looking at the A's, and set a total to where a 10 or less. I'm in on the over, 10.5 or higher, the under. I'm not going to go too deep on Gunnar Hoglund just because it might be someone else, and if it's not Gunnar Hoglund, probably not going to affect the number overly much, because Hoglund has not been great since coming up to the big league level. A 6.40 ERA. He's made 6 starts, and right now he's given up 2.8 home runs per 9 innings. That is a 6.69, very nice fielding independent, and he's been getting banged around like a piñata. 3+ runs allowed in each of his last 4 starts, and for Bailey Ober, he has been rock solid for this Minnesota Twins team. A 3.48 ERA, fielding independent, hovering in that neighborhood more around about a 3.70. He's down with his strikeout stuff, 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's only getting about 2.3 walks per 9 innings, and when it comes to Bailey Ober, he had that really rough first start of the season, but ever since then he's been around in form now. Does have a 4.65 ERA on the road in Sacramento. It's been just a hitter's haven in general. Brent Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom, both have been able to give you 12+ home runs for this Athletics team. For the Athletics, you've been able to have Lawrence Butler be able to do a better job of moving line recently, and it has been stunning what we've seen this far this season out of the young guy in Jacob Wilson, hitting at 3.55. He's starting to draw some walks, so absolutely love his plate approach. And then for the bullpen, well, I don't love this approach. You're currently dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA, as you just don't really have anyone in this bullpen that's able to give you a good inning. Hogan Harris, out of all the guys that have thrown at least 4 2/3 innings, is the only guy in the bullpen with a sub-4 ERA. He's right now hovering at a 3.54, and for Grant Holman, Mitch Spence, these 2 guys have right around about a 4.4 ERA, and with Mason Miller, it's been a rough season for him. He is posting up an ERA that's right around about a 5.40. You've had guys like Noah Murdoch, who they had to DFA, just absolutely poop the bed. They just can't find anyone in this bullpen at this point. And for the flip side with the Minnesota Twins, it has been a lineup that has been a little bit rough, but it's been a bullpen that has been amazing. This Minnesota Twins team is a top 6 team with regards to their bullpen ERA, as you've been able to get some really good innings out of the likes of Louis Varland, Justin Topa, Cole Sands. I'll give you a sub 3.15 ERA. You own it on has been posting up a 1 ERA. Danny Klum still on the injured list, but overall, it's a pretty deep bullpen, and for the Minnesota Twins, you've been able to get some good production out of Byron Buxton, who's flying 10 home runs. He's been able to about a 275. You've got Ty France, Trevor Larnach, Harrison Bader, hitting between about a 263 to a 275, and with regards to Trevor Larnach, he's been able to give you 9 home runs thus far this season, and I do think that for this Twins team, they're going to be getting a little bit more of the likes of Willie Castro and company, and with regards to this Minnesota Twins team, I do think that they should be a pretty sizable favorite here. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 110 on that run line, plus 170 or higher. Do like the ace, and then 10 or less, I'm in on the over 10.5 or higher. The under 913, 914 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles are going to be on the road against the Seattle Mariners, as Brian Wu says woohoo to another start. Zach Eflin is on the bump for Baltimore. 7.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, and with the Seattle Mariners, they are between minus 162 to minus 175 favorites. And between plus 140 to plus 150 is that number on Baltimore. And with Baltimore, I did set them at a plus 176. So if you're looking at the run line of Seattle, you're able to get that at right around about plus 122, plus 125. I'm going to take a plus 115 or higher. With Wu, he's been able to do a really good job just being able to produce for this team, as right now his ERA is hovering in that neighborhood of about a 280, and his fielding dependent is very much on par with that. A 304 fielding dependent. He's only giving up 1.2 walks and 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. Has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer. Pretty much all of it, but one of his starts this far this season, and that came in Sacramento, where ball's just been flying all season long. Meanwhile, for Zach Eflin, he's been pretty Eflin good in terms of not giving up walks, but it's been a bit of a rough season in terms of giving up the hard contact. 446 ERA, 538 fielding dependent, as he's given up 2 home runs per 9 innings. Now, when it comes to Zach Eflin, I do think that he's going to be able to give you a little bit more moving forward, and we have seen him just start to round into form a little bit more here in the last start against the Chicago White Sox. First 2 starts off the injured list, it was a little bit shaky for him, but I do think that you're going to be able to get a better effort moving forward. But with the Baltimore Orioles, man, it's just a bullpen that's not great. Even if you do get Zach Eflin to be able to lend like 6 solid innings or something like that, you can't trust in almost any of these guys in the bullpen. Keegan Aiken has actually been relatively solid as a long guy. He and Brian Baker have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA, but like I said, when it comes to these guys and their winding roads, it's just not been great. So Anthony Dominguez at 5 ERA, you have not been able to get good production out of someone like Casino Perez, who's currently on the injured list. Matt Bowman, he's been providing north of 5 ERA. Gregory Soto has been all over the place. Even Felix Bautista, north of a 3.6 ERA. Yanir Cano, don't you know, he's been rough. And for Cedric Mullins, 10 home runs this far this season, but he's been dealing with the injuries, and he's currently on the injured list. You've got Jackson Holliday, along Gunnar Henderson, providing 7 home runs apiece, both hitting between about a 260 to a 270. Ryan O'Hearn, north of 420 on base. He's been able to play with 9 home runs, but Heston Kjerstad is hitting below the middle line of 200. Tyler O'Neill has been rough all season long, so I mean, it's been rough for this team to say the least. And then you've got Andres Munoz, who's been one of the better closers in the big leagues for the Seattle Mariners. Carlos Vargas has been able to step up. He's been able to give this team a sub 3 ERA. Gabe Spire has been pretty solid, so I like what these guys are bringing to the table. Now, Colin Snyder has been rough, to say the least, but that said, I do think that this is a very good circumstance for the Seattle Mariners to get the job done. I'm going to take a plus 115 or higher on the run line, and I do think that Brian Wu holds it down some. I told 7.3, so here at the 7.5, I do like the under. 915, 916 on the betting board. You got the Cleveland Guardians on the road against the New York Yankees. Mad Max Fried is on the bump for the Yankees. Slade Sassoni goes for Cleveland. Cleveland, an underdog of anywhere between plus 210 to a plus 223. Meanwhile, anywhere between minus 246 to a minus 260 is that number on the Yankees. If you're looking to lay a run half with them, that's going to be right around about a minus 120 to a minus 125, and in half is the total. The over is minus 120 and the under is even. And for the Guardians, if we can get to a plus 227, we're about 5 pennies off, and I do think that when it's all said and done, we should be able to get there. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that money line. As for Slade Sassoni, it's been rough, him giving up 5 home runs in his first 3 starts of the season, but his swing and miss stuff is actually way up. He's able to give you 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. So issue with Slade Sassoni is that now he has to go up against a New York Yankees lineup that is number 1 in the American League in terms of runs per game, and there's this guy by the name of Aaron Judge who has been pretty darn good this far this season. He's been supplying you with a nearly 480 on base. Guy is slugging out 21 home runs. It's been remarkable. And then Paul Goldschmidt has done a nice job getting on base with a 380 on base, down with regards to his power, but Ben Rice, Trent Grisham combined 25 home runs. Both of these guys, along Cody Bellinger, between a 329 to a 340 on base. You saw Dominguez, he's been able to give you about a 340 on base as well. And then for this Yankees bullpen, they are without Luke Weaver, so that does leave a little bit of vulnerability there, and that means that Max Fried, who's got currently a $1.95 ERA, feeling dependent closer to about a high 2s, low 3s, because he is only getting about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, albeit doing a nice job keeping the ball in the yard, giving up about a half home run per 9 innings, but still has had a few issues and strikes there. That is a bit of an issue. Now they're bringing back Adam Ottavino to help out in the bullpen, but I mean, you've had good production out of Yuri De Los Santos along Tim Hill. Both of these guys have been able to give you about a sub-325 ERA. And for the Cleveland Guardians, this just has not been the same bullpen that it was a season ago. Hunter Gaddis has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Cade Smith has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well, but I mean, this team is right around about league average, 16th with regards to 390 bullpen ERA, so we have certainly seen some slippage there as Emmanuel Clase has looked a little bit better over last month, but still it's been relatively shaky out of him. Jacob Junis is posting up north of 4 ERA, and for the Cleveland Guardians, the big thing is you do have a lineup that at the top is very good, as Jose Ramirez up to 11 bombs. He's providing a 385 on base. Stephen Kwan is hitting above a 300, and Carlos Santana is a 370 on base for him. You've got the likes of a Bo Naylor, Lane Thomas, Brian Rocchio. They sent down to the minor league level. Guys like this hitting below the middle sign 200. You've got Daniel Schneemann, who's been able to give you about a 330 on base. So he's been rock solid. And Kyle Manzardo is up to 10 home runs, but hitting just a 210. I do, though, think that this is a number that's starting to get a little bit lofty, and I do think that Max Fried might be doing for just a skoge of regression. So I did set my tilt at 8.2 here at the 8.5. I'm going to be looking at the under. And for Cleveland, plus 227 or higher. Looking at that money line, 917, 918 on the card. The Texas Rangers are on the road. They're facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. Ryan Pepiot is on the bump for the Rays. Jack Leiter is on the bump for Texas. Texas finds themselves as a plus 122 to a plus 130 underdog. Minus 140 to minus 155. That number on the Rays. 9 is the total over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And with Ryan Pepiot and company, I did set the Rays at a minus 152 on the money line. You're right now finding that run line more around about a plus 140, and I'm going to be willing to take it. I set mine at a plus 132 for Pepiot. It's been a little bit shaky this far this season, but I do think that he's going to be able to give you some good innings here, as right now for Pepiot, 321 ERA. Fielding independent is much higher, though, right around about 423. He's given up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, career low 7.2 punch outs per 9, but it's coming off of giving up a combined 7 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts. Meanwhile, for Jack Leiter, it's been a case where this guy has been able to do a really rock solid job in terms of being able to give you more in his last 4 starts. How about a combined 6 earned runs in this time span? And for the swing and miss stuff, it's not really there for him at this point. 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He is giving up 4.5 walks per 9, so he's got a 425 fielding independent, but he's not giving up as much hard contact as a season ago. He's given up less than a home run per 9 innings. This is a Texas Rangers bullpen, though. It's not great. It's not necessarily terrible. For the Rangers, right around about 14th of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. I do like what you've been able to get out of some of these guys like Chris Martin, but Chris Martin has landed on the injured list, so that means that now you're going to have Robert Garcia step up, who's been able to do a nice job. He's been able to give you a sub-250 ERA, but Jacob Light's a long guy. He's providing about a 3 ERA. Sean Armstrong, though, is starting to see that ERA go up to about a 380. Jacob Webb has not been great, and Luke Jackson, he's providing north of 4.4 ERA as well. And for the Rangers, they just flat out aren't hitting this year. The team is in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Wyatt Langford, 11 home runs. He's been able to hit for just a 225. We have seen that overall on-base percentage fall down from, and then Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Jake Berger, Jock Peterson, all hitting at 220 or lower. All give you 7 home runs or fewer. You just see more of these guys. Corey Seagerson's coming off the injured list, has not been himself as well. Only a 307 on base thus far this season. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, all of a sudden, this has been a lineup that has been able to do a little bit of a better job putting bat to ball. Having this be an outdoor stadium has been helping them quite a bit. But Junior Caminero, 14 home runs. He's been able to about a 265. You've got Brandon Lau, who's been able to get loud. He's giving you 11 bombs. He's hitting for about a 245. And Jonathan Aranda, north of a 400 base. He's been able to do a nice job there. Yandy Diaz, he's been able to give you 8 home runs, hitting for about a 240. And I do think that for the Tampa Bay Rays team, they're going to do a nice job of getting the job done because they do have that bullpen that is just so supreme. It's once again a top 8 bullpen. With regards to ERA, you've got likes of Pete Fairbanks, along with Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, Eric Orze, who've all been able to give you sub 3 ERA. Hunter Biggie's been solid as well, but he's unfortunately on the injured list. But do think that Pepiot and company find a way to get the job done. I'm willing to take that run line of the Rays and did set my total at an 8.7. So seeing the 9, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on this total under 919, 920 on the bank, where the Philadelphia Phillies are on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays, as Chris Bassett has the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays, and Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phillies. Phillies do find themselves as between minus 120 to minus 125 favorites, plus 105 to plus 112. That number on Toronto, 8 is the total, over and under both at minus 110. And with Toronto, I did set them on the money line at a plus 128, so I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Phillies, as Jesus Luzardo has some very misleading numbers right now because he just got left to dry in his last start against the Milwaukee Brewers. Just so unfortunate. He's got a 3.58 ERA. Right now, 2.67 fielding independent. Prior to that start against the Brewers, where he gave up 12 runs, he was on his way to perhaps being a Cy Young candidate. And they just decided, you know what, Jesus Luzardo, you're just going to eat it on this day, because prior to that, he had a 2.15 ERA and a 2.25 fielding independent. Gets a little blaze there, so very unfortunate on that front. He's still getting about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. And for Chris Bassett, he's been pretty rock solid all season long. He's been able to cut down on the walks, as he's only giving up in the neighborhood about 1.8, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, 9.5 punch-outs per 9, 3.80 ERA, but a 3.57 fielding independent. Has fallen on tough times. He's given up 5+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts, but do think that he rounds into a little bit more form here. Now, he does go up against the Philadelphia Phillies lineup that I also do think that they're going to get the deep ball going a little bit more with guys not named Bryce Harper, along with also Kyle Schwarber. 390 on base, 19 home runs. And then the only other 2 guys that have north of 6 home runs for the team, Harper, fresh off of taking that, shall we say, beanball off the elbow, 9 home runs. He was able to go deep earlier in the series, and then Trey Turner down for what? He's up to 7 bombs as well. Alec Boehm, Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto, all on 5 home runs. And Realmuto is only hitting a 225. Boehm and Castellanos sitting about a 275. So these guys have really been able to pick it up, though. It's been a rough year for Brandon Marsh, Max Kepler, not really doing a great job. I'll be able to get on base, and the big trepidation that you do have for the Phillies is this bullpen is just not good. You've got a bottom 8 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Ryan Kerkering is, I'll give you a sub 3.2 ERA, so that's all. But Jose Alvarado being suspended has been hurting the team. Matt Strahm has seen his ERA go up to about a 3.70. Max Laser, they're looking at him a little bit more, as he and Carlos Hernandez north of a 5 ERA. Jordan Romano has been awful all season long. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, it is a bullpen that's right around about league average. You have had Jeff Hoffman, the former Philadelphia Philly, really struggle for this team, but Mason Flaherty is down to about a 3.33 ERA. Yimi Garcia, who's dealing with a little bit of an injury, has been solid as well. Brandon Little should be able to fill in there. He and Paxton Schultz have been able to give you a sub 2 ERA. You've got Uriel Rodriguez, a good long guy, who's able to give you a sub 3 ERA, but you've had a little bit of inconsistency in general with regards to this lineup, as you're just not getting a lot of power out of these guys either. Right now, Dalton Varsho, who missed north of 30 games this season, he's tied for the team lead in home runs with 8. You've also got Vlad Guerrero Jr. and George Springer with 8 bombs, and both of these guys provide north of 370 on base, so they're still moving line. Bo Bichette, 7 bombs. He's hitting about a 275. Alejandro Kirk, don't call his name, sitting darn near 300. And the likes of Addison Barger, Nathan Lukes, again, they're hitting about a 275, but the power just has not been there for them, so that's an issue, and they're also not sealing any bags. So I did set the Phillies at a minus 128. I do like them on the money line, and with regards to total semi and at 8.1 side of the 8, do like the over 921, 922. On the card, you've got the Pittsburgh Pirates playing against the Houston Astros. Framber Valdez is on the bump for Houston, and you've got Mitch Keller on the bump for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a underdog of between plus 135 to a plus 140. Meanwhile, minus 152 to a minus 162. Then around Houston, 7.5 is the total. Over is minus 120. The under is even, and the Astros are plus 110 on the run line. I would need closer to about a plus 117, and I was willing to take a plus 146 or better with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Right now, we're not quite there, but I do think that once we get the timelines out, we should be able to. So I do anticipate, when it's all said and done, being on Pittsburgh in some form or capacity. As for Mitch Keller, all throughout his career, he's been a better pitcher when he has been at home rather than on the road. For Keller, he's got a career north of 5 ERA. When he's on the road, at home, he's only giving up about 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. That ERA goes down by a full point. And for Keller, it's been a bit of an inconsistent year for him, 3.73 ERA, but positivity should be coming from, as he's done a nice job inducing soft contact. He's given up just 4 home runs in 70 innings this season. He's only given up about 2.5 walks per 9 as well. So those are things I do like him. For Framber Valdez, it's been a little bit shaky for him as well. He's giving you a 3.12 ERA, and fielding independent more around about a 3.24. 8.5 strikeouts, fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings, and he's given up approximately 1 run in 4 of his last 5 starts, so he's done a nice job rounding into form. This continues to be a Houston Astros bullpen that's one of the best in all of baseball. Brian King fell on a little bit of a tough time about a week or so ago, but still the team is about a 3.48 with regards to their ERA. Josh Hader, along with Brian Abreu, throwing their Caleb Ort, are giving you a sub 3 ERA. And for the Houston Astros, this has been a bottom 10 team in the big leagues with regards to runs per game, though Isaac Paredes starting to pick it up. He's been able to give you north of a 350 on base. He is supplying you with 11 home runs. I absolutely love what you've been able to get out of Jose Altuve, and for Altuve, he's been doing a better job here over the last, we're going to call it about 2 or so weeks. He and Jeremy Pena up to 9 home runs, and Pena is hitting north of a 300. You've got Jake Myers give you about a 350 on base. do need to get a little bit more of Yunior Diaz, hitting for a 263 on base with 7 home runs, just not necessarily cutting it, but even Cam Smith has been able to pick it up a little bit for this team. And then for the Pittsburgh Pirates, this has been the lowest scoring team in the National League, not named the Colorado Rockies, so that's a bit of an issue for you. But for this Pittsburgh bunch, I do think that you're going to be able to get quite a bit moving forward out of Oneil Cruz, who's right now supplying about a 350 on base, 12 home runs, and Andrew McCutchen. He's been able to give you about a 360 on base. Ageless wonder that continues to produce for the team. Brian Reynolds has been giving you 7 home runs, but it's been a little bit shaky out of him. The big thing is the bottom of the lineup. These guys like Tommy Pham, Jared Trollo, Henry Davis, you've got a turnstile of a whole bunch of different guys that they're utilizing that just aren't moving the line, aren't getting on base, and I do think that that's going to be keeping the scoring relatively low in this one. Now, I did set my total at 7.8. I do think that we went down just a scotch too low. The Astros seem to be rounding into form a little bit more with their offense, and so do the Pittsburgh Pirates. After the Pirates, they had that string of 4 runs or fewer in 26 straight games, so do like the over. And for Pittsburgh, if I'm able to get a money line price of a plus 146 or higher, I'll be in on that. And then we wrap things up with 923, 924 on the card. The Cardinals are going to be playing us the Kansas City Royals. Cole Ragans is on the bump for the Royals, and Matthew Liberatore is on the bump for St. Louis. St. Louis is a minus 112 to a minus 120 favorite. And between even money to plus 102 is that number on Kansas City. 7.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. Over is minus 105. And for the Cardinals, I did set them at a minus 119, so I'm going to be willing to roll with it. Now, for Cole Ragans, ever since he got to Kansas City, he's actually been a little bit of a better pitcher on the road rather than at home. But for Cole Ragans, it's also been a case where he's been not necessarily getting the ERA that he deserves, but this is also going to be his first start in about 3 or so weeks. Last started on May 16th. He spent a little bit of time on the injured list. He's getting 14 strikeouts per 9 innings, which for start off the injured list, you have to figure he might not be going quite as deep, and that swing and miss stuff might be just a skoge down. 2.5 walks per 9 innings out of him, and he's got a 198 fielding dependent compared to a 4.53 ERA. Just laughably hilarious. But that said, again, what are you going to be able to get out of him start number 1? Meanwhile, with him, Matthew Liberatore, this guy's been one of the most rock-solid pitchers in all of baseball. He's been giving you a 3.08 ERA, but that fielding dependent for him, that is hovering right around about a 265, 1.3 walks per 9 innings. He's getting about 8 punch-outs per 9 as well, and he did have a little bit of a rough start against the Texas Rangers on the road, but past that, he has been rock solid, and this is a Cardinals bullpen that's hovering right around about league average with regards to bullpen ERA, so that's one thing that the Kansas City Royals are going to have the advantage in this one, as Lucas Ursadge, Carlos Aceves, both of these guys have been able to give you a sub-250 ERA. You've had Daniel Lynch be able to step up. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Steven Cruz has been able to do a nice job as well, and then on the flip side, you've got a St. Louis Cardinals team that has Ryan Elsley, I believe, is one of the better closers in all baseball, posting up right around about a 3 ERA, and then you've had Phil Matone, Kyle Leahy be able to step up. They've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well. Jojo Romero, after a rough start to the season, he's rounding into form as well, so very interesting set of circumstances here with a Royals team that is just not giving you any sort of run production whatsoever, and it's a St. Louis Cardinals team that they're really without a ton of power. For St. Louis, you've got Lars Nootbaar, who's been able to give you 8 home runs this far this season, about a 350 on base. Brendan Donovan has been able to give you about a 380 on base. You've got Mason Wynn providing about a 350 on base, but I mean, really nobody outside of Nootbaar with north of 6 home runs this season. Wilson Contreras about a 320 on base, and Nolan Arenado is just down in general, hitting for about a 230. Flip side for the Kansas City Royals, you've had Vinny Pasquantino be able to fly this team with 8 home runs, and he's starting to round into form a little bit more with regards to his hitting for about a 260. Bobby Witt Jr., though, 7 home runs at a 350 on base. I mean, for a normal player, that's not bad, but you expect more out of Bobby Witt Jr. Miguel Garcia, about a 375 on base, so he's been moving the line for you. And then you do have Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell, both hitting above a 280, but Hunter Renfroe and a lot of these veteran bats, Kevon Biggio and company, just have not been able to give you too much of anything. Bottom of the lineup has been a mess. Jonathan India, he's been able to give you 333 on base, but just 1 home run this season. So did set the Cardinals at a minus 119. I'm going to be willing to roll with them on the money line. And did set my total 7.6. I think that we've gone just a skoge too low here. Going to be in on that over. And if this sounds like an insert, it is, because we now have a double dip between the St. Louis Cardinals and also the Kansas City Royals, as we are going to be getting the same pitching matchup that we were supposed to be getting on Wednesday for Thursday, as it is going to be Noah Cameron going up against Miles Michaelis. And right now the initial openers have the Royals at about a plus 115, and this total is at an 8.5, but I would be willing to take a shot on the over at an 8.5 or less. I set my total at an 8.6 with Noah Cameron and Miles Michaelis, pair of pitcher contact guys. Both are giving you less than 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. Both give you right around about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. And Cameron, in his first 4 career starts, a 1.10 ERA. I just don't think that's necessarily sustainable. Meanwhile, for Miles Michaelis, he's been able to really round into form. Did give give up 4 runs in his last start, but he had been on a stretch where I think he gave up like 2 earned runs in his previous 5 starts. Just don't think that that's going to be long lasting, and I do think that with the Royals, having that bullpen edge is going to be just enough for them to get the job done here in this Cameron versus Michaelis game, which is actually going to be game number 1. So plus 115 or higher, looking at the Royals money line, and 8.5 or less, I do like the over. That'll wrap things up for the Thursday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to one of our good friends in Rob Donaldson of the Rob's Best Bet Show for joining me in the live segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, naming does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast, 5-star review, and I'm giving that to you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.